So Flow actually has there's a layer in Flow for doing HTTP, and it's sans dependency NS URL stuff. So it might be worth like comparing what you've done to that small class in Flow, um, just to make sure you have like all your error handling covered and all that stuff. But
I'm sure I don't.
well, I mean, it's under that same mentality of like just a really simple class, super lightweight, no dependencies, um, in addition to the polyfill on the Android side. But that with regards to source, if you want to try something like that, um, Flow would be a good reference to look at uh, for a specific state. I don't know how battle hardened that is in general, but I imagine there's some good wisdom inside of that code base.
Yeah, probably. I may look at seeing about combining it. I mean, that's probably something worth breaking out of Flow just so that it stands alone as an option. I mean, people can always use the AF networking stuff, but and I mean, there's advantages to doing that because it's bigger and robust and provides more situations. But sometimes, sorry, go ahead.
It didn't work very well when I tried to use it for my swappy Flow example.
Oh, the Flow networking?
The Star Wars API.
Okay.
I was consuming that using the Flow stuff.
And it wasn't working. Okay, that's good to know.
On the Android side, the iOS side worked just fine. On the Android side, it died a horrible death, and I did find some stuff that would introduce a dependency to make it work right on Android, but yeah, it's basically, it doesn't handle sort of large amounts of data. And I'm not even talking like really large. I'm just talking sort of semi-large.
Another issue with Android is JSON payloads or payloads in general are severely size constrained. Yeah, it's not fun. I mean, it isn't. They're really stingy about that kind of stuff, and it's just it's not fun.
I found a library called JSON. I think it was something Google wrote to basically get around this. But then I didn't have time to dig into it. So
Google wrote a library to get around a constraint in Android?
Yeah, exactly.
No comment.
Yeah.
No comment. No commento.
It's like a time paradox thing where you go back and kill your own grandfather, right?
Yeah. Well, it's just, yeah, exactly.
You would do that, Andy.
Anyway. The other thing that I just recently stumbled across was something that won't work out of the box with RubyMotion, but we might be able to produce a fork of it that works. There's something called http.rb, a gem.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a pure Ruby. Unfortunately, it uses forwardable.
Okay.
But I actually created, a sort of hacked on version of forwardable that worked in another place that I needed forwardable. So anyway, I just found HTTPRB like 2 days ago. So
could you just reference the forwardable code? Because I've had situations where I wanted observable and I just put it in there and that was it.
Yeah, I think it just depends on what parts of forwardable that were being used.
Okay. Groovy. I mean Ruby, but groovy. I'm so lame, I know. So I'm just looking at HTTP RB. It's interesting. It uses libcurl. What is libcurl?
That's a standard C library on Unix, isn't it?
Which is interesting because if it's a standard C library, it's a standard C library, right?
Yeah.
Which is good, which is a good thing. Looking. Yeah, I'm almost wondering if we can even compile that and then for ARM64 and put it on the device. We might be able to. Cool. I'll add that as a. That will be really, really interesting if that works. Okay, cool. Anything else? Do you want me to start, or was there other stuff?
Go ahead. I'll give a school update.
No, go for it.
Okay.
Go for it. Yeah.
So yeah, the intro class is up and published, and every once in a while somebody finds it and buys it, but I haven't been advertising it because I just had Derek go through it with all the latest greatest stuff, 9.4, and he found a couple of things that I'm fixing up, and then he found some other things that he has a unique perspective of being, sort of pretty new to Ruby on top of being new to RubyMotion. And he made some suggestions. So I'm doing a few more additions and regenerating a couple of the videos. And when I'm done that, I'll let you know. I keep saying it'll be like tomorrow, but these things always take longer than I plan.
Why isn't it done yet?
Yeah, I know.
Help me understand.
I'm also fighting my perfectionist tendencies and then I just said, screw it, I'm not going to fight anymore. And I'm going in and I'm putting on, lead in and trail out stuff on all the videos as I edit them, and because I can't stop myself. But yeah, it's like I am so done with this course. So it's gonna be done this week, no matter what. And that includes having some blog posts updated that all lead through to the course. And then, yeah, I think, Amir, Monday, start sending people to the school.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. No, that's good. That's good. I'll DM you, and then we'll kind of take it from there and see what's up.
Yeah, I've got whole bunches of copy written and an intro video and everything now, so cool. It should be good.
Sorry, I'm looking for one more link.
Oh, P.S. for any of you guys that are like, solopreneurs, like I've been for years and years, going from one person to two people, that's like the same as like any scaling thing. That's the hardest thing to do. Oh my God. It just chewed up so much of my time getting all these things that I didn't know I would need to do when I got a co-op student.
Oh dear. No, I hear you. It's funny because I recently hired 2 executive consultants, is what I call them. And they're basically college seniors that have CS background, and so they do all my Googling for me and stuff. So things I don't know that would take me the same amount of time as it would take anyone else. You just kind of roll your head on the keyboard until you figure something out. I go Google this and give me something that looks like this. I don't care if it's a sample app. I don't care if you figure out yourself, whatever it is. And one of them was he worked at the student center, and I was like, okay, so you work at the student center, right? I was like, yeah. And you work night shift? Yeah. And you go to school? Yeah, it's kind of tough. I'm like, how would you like to not do that and actually do something that's potentially usable in your career? And he's like, oh, that's great. That would be great. And similar story with the other with my other minion. I mean, executive technical assistant. ETA. That's an interesting acronym, but minion. So it's fun. Oh, you're muted if you're.
Yes, having a minion is fun. I have, for instance, Derek is currently tasked with spending half his time ripping through Jack's videos.
Awesome. Yeah.
To do an eval to see how many are out of date completely, how many need updating, and how many are good to go. So I can have a good estimate if Jack ever gets back to me about the motion and motion stuff.
Cool.
Has he come back to you at all with it? Because not a word, eh? No.
Not a word.
Did you read his blog post that Andrew linked to?
Yes, I did.
Was interesting.
Well, I did the great thing, just like he's going, oh, make me an offer. And I'm going, how much do you want? So yeah, that may be the sticking point for him. But I don't want to come up with an insulting offer, but he's the only one that can value
it's funny
his work. Yeah. So yeah. So I'm just gonna wait.
What is it worth? And it's a very hard thing to judge.
It is.
So I would say, like, my thumb in the air would be at his best. He wrote it in the Medium, right? It was let's say best case was 36,000 a year. Okay. And so I would do 36,000 divided by the number of videos is the annual worth for a specific video. And then if you multiply that by 3, you get an acquisition for a single video, right? A reasonable, quote unquote, objective. This is what companies pay 3x revenue for an acquisition of some type.
Yeah.
And just see what that number is. Right? And that's best case, right?
Yeah. That's why I'm looking at them and trying to figure out how many of them are actually still current and usable.
Yep. Yeah, and if it's 10, then that's kind of your top end, and then I guess go from there.
Yep.
Ruby.
Okay, I'm done.
Well done. Anyone else have stuff? No? Okay, cool. Let me share my screen. Okay, let me know when you can see Hello World and it's not super tiny.
That looks pretty good to me.
Right there? Is that good? All right. Okay, what do I want to show? I don't know. Yes. So first thing, and this would be related to Lori stuff actually. There is a new command in RubyMotion called pulse. I'm not sure if you've seen that yet or not, but let me show you kind of what it looks like. So if you do motion pulse, you get nothing back, which is totally makes sense because I've already pulsed. Let me clear out my pulse directory. All right. So now if I do motion pulse, you see that, right? So what this does is anytime someone runs a motion command or motion pulse, either one, what happens is that it just pulls a text file from the internets, and I go through the text file, parse it real quickly, and print out almost like a small feed of news with regards to RubyMotion. So these are the most recent feeds that happened so far, right? The point, or my quote unquote aha moment for this was social media is a thing. Emails are a thing. Email spam is annoying. Doing drip emails is frustrating. All that stuff is annoying. So I wanted a way to reach people that are using RubyMotion, whether just period, right? And the most obvious way I could think of was if they're running the motion command, they're using RubyMotion. So this is a direct funnel or a direct pipe to anyone that runs the motion command. Sudo motion update, motion repo, motion create, any and all things motion related. And at least for like these like quick little bits of text. So like if I do motion pulse again, I'm not gonna see this stuff, right? Because I've quote unquote read it already. But yeah, for Lori, when your school is up and running, and you put out a course, I can send out a pulse for you, right? And really, all it is if you go to this link, let me. All right, I'm going to put this in the chat. I guess I'll put it in Slack chat. That'll be better. And I'll put it in the meetup. But there's a file in there called pulse.txt. And just send a pull request that updates the file, and I'll accept the pull request, and that's it. Right? And then you'll be ready to go. Thoughts?
Cool.
What does my work wife think? My work spouse. My most critical of critics.
Don't tell me that. It seems like a cool feature. Like a cool way to get that information out to people.
Yeah, there are times where like blog posts and news can be long form, and the pulse will essentially say, news update has been released, go to the blog, right? If there's some long form stuff, the two Medium articles that were released around the music API, that would be something I'd pulse out and just say, these are quick reads. talks about this stuff. When I do updates for Mojave, I'll send out pulses for that stuff too. Just general things that show that things are moving, things are being updated. When a GitHub issue opens up, I can say, hey, this GitHub issue opened up. You may want to look at it. Or good discussion on Slack. Here's the link. All those like little drops of information that people may not want to go on, like register to the community forum or get onto Slack and go through all of the registration process. They get a direct feed to what's a curated set of information, and then high signal, low noise kind of thing, and dirt simple, right? No crazy stuff. It's all text, and that information's there. So if you run Motion repo, and then you run Motion Pulse, you'll see that information start popping up. What I'm hoping is people will start getting in the habit of kind of just doing a pulse occasionally, and I will continue to update RubyMotion in such a way that it kind of nags them if they haven't pulsed in a while, and use that as the first line of communication for important things that need to be communicated. Cool.
Sounds good.
The sources is if you run Motion Pulse, you'll see a pulse that points to the source code for Pulse. So that is also available too. You can do a text version of all the things by going to pulse.rubymotion.com. You just go there, and that's the text file. It's just a S3 endpoint, no repo cloning, none of that stuff. It's just text. I wish the entire web was like this. That'd make things so much easier.
I think this is a wonderful idea. Some of the detractors that sit out there that, as we see every now and then on the Slack or on, in the community board, where people say, but you haven't been on Twitter, or you haven't done this, or you haven't done that. It's not going to address that issue, but it does keep those of us in the community, whether we're on the board or on Slack, it does keep us sort of up to date with what's going on, because not everybody, and for some of us, trying to follow for things on Twitter is annoying.
Yes. No, I like the other thing is that
none of your posts, Lori, they're wonderful.
I love Lori's posts. They are the best. They are the best posts.
Sure.
No, and it really the chat, the gotcha there, and the interesting part there is that is the ratio of people that download the starter edition relative to the people that follow the Twitter account. It's just order of magnitude different, right? So you start getting into those levels, and there's all these barriers to entry, and this kind of removes those. So I totally understand from that perspective. The interesting thing there is that my primary response would be install the starter license. That's it, right? Just what harm will it do if you it's free, it's a starter license. They install it, and then they suddenly see the pulses, and they suddenly see historical data, and they suddenly see updates coming in, and then it almost becomes a non-issue. But I understand what you're saying, and my relationship with Twitter is complicated, of course, and I try. This specifically addresses the issue of there are people in the community that are just invisible, and I want to reach them somehow. And emails are fine, but again, you see an email, you see a newsletter, it's just like, please just delete it. I don't care. Unsubscribe. all those things. So this is that gateway to those people that regularly use RubyMotion, but just aren't being communicated to.
They may have a block on using Slack or something like that, in their workplace, or, there's all sorts of rules if you're working for somebody else that comes up that, some people are amazed to hear that, but, I know of tons of them,
Yeah, that or you're not on social media, or like you have a Twitter account, but the last time you tweeted was almost 600 days ago, right? It's just those things that it's so unrelated. It makes little sense for me to install the Twitter app just so I can get information, right, about a product I'm using.
Yeah.
And having the public forum, again, is very good. But the signal to noise ratio is it's more closer to each other. So this information is like, this is important. You should read it. It's important. You should read it, or you may find it important or useful. Right. And that's what it's a utility over perceived, public presence kind of thing. Right. And again, my response would be download the starter edition. You're suddenly going to see a lot of things that you may not be privy to. Right. If all you're going to do if all you're going to do is look at a website or a Twitter handle and say thumbs down, are you really assessing at that point? I mean, like, what are you doing at that point? Right.
Yeah.
So at least download the starter edition, and then you're going to see these interesting things come up. So that's what I got from that perspective. Does that kind of address what you were talking about? I can tweet more if you want me to. I can tweet more.
I think it's the lack of stuff on the RubyMotion Twitter account itself that is what people like. I don't think anybody who follows you doubts that RubyMotion is still going, but the people that don't know you out of the gate, they go and look at the RubyMotion Twitter handle, and it's pretty quiet.
Yeah, and so like sorry, so you're not talking to a screen. Again, I totally get that, and the general mixed feelings I have are, I think about just following company accounts, and it's so much fluff, right? You get it really is, right? So you kind of see the company account, you're just like, it's useless fluff.
I understand that, because company accounts are, they have social media people that are dumping things out, and it might be, Amir, that all that you need to do if on the official account is simply post it every time that there's a new release, or about to, right?
No, that's totally.
I mean, for some people, I like the idea of this. This is a pull; it's not a push, right? It's like you're going to have to run the command in order to see what's new.
For now,
Okay.
Eventually, I want to slowly make it push as we go along.
Okay.
Right now, it's push if you run anything motion related.
Okay. Okay. So when you're running the rake commands and building stuff, then you'll see the
you will not, because that's
right.
Oh,
Okay. And that's what I was wondering, because I don't know how often I would run the motion command.
Yeah, and it's just I want to be respectful of people's rake process, right? Not hitting a curl every time they rake. So there might be something that I do with the rake processes that kind of look at your last read and just say, hey, notification. I'm not doing anything. I'm just letting you know that you've never ran the motion pulse command, or it's been at least a few days since you've ran it.
5 days or something like that,
yeah,
right?
You might want to run motion pulse just to see what's out there, and I think that's not too intrusive to where it's just a console out and you're good.
I was looking for myself about, do I need to set a reminder to run the pulse?
Yeah, I mean, and I think it makes total sense to. My gut says that's not a big deal, and I'm not hearing too many objections from he who shall not be named.
I think it's a good. I think what you're talking about is a good idea.
Okay, yay!
Showing, hey, you've got this many unread.
Well, it won't even say unread because that again is a query. But at least I can say it's been this long since you've ran it, because that's just a local look at a file.
Yeah. Cool.
I can do that.
But tweeting out when you do a release on the official account, that's nobody would view that as corporate spam. It's more of a corporate courtesy information, and the people that are following Twitter, that might be the sort of thing that picks them up, and then they can see, oh, okay, these updates are coming regularly. This is not, right.
No, that's totally fair. And what I'll do as just a simple starting point is that if I send out a pulse, I'll also tweet that same thing, and I'll create a small little process that does that for me, so I don't have to do it. Because, automation for the win.
Because automation, yay!
Yeah, so I'll just send out it's like there'll be a post commit hook, and it'll just do it, and I don't have to worry about it. Okay, I will make that update for sure, but just want you all to know that it's available to the community. You send the pull request, I'll review it and say, I don't know, or I'll be a bit more scrutinous about that, but because it's getting blasted out to potentially a lot of people. So that's Pulse.
I've got a question that's tangentially related.
Yes, dear.
Don't call me that. So there was a question about whether or not the next release was going to be a 5.9.1 or something like that, like using patch release versions. I was wondering if that was possible or if there was some reason not to do that.
It's the reason not to do that is because library/RubyMotion/version.rb doesn't, and you with the greater than operator may not support the patch release. So it's me going, do I want to code that up or just do a dot release? So my little band-aid for that is do the dot release and then have it in the changelog that it's not a big deal, and then potentially put out a pulse that says you should totally update, right?
Cool.
So if you want to take a stab at it, Amir Rajan /RubyMotion-build has the bits in there for version.rb. And I'll take a look. I agree. I think having the dot releases is nice, especially for like the regression that we recently had. So being able to do a 5.9.1 immediately communicates it's totally okay to upgrade to this. So it is. I will consider it more strongly now. See, now I don't even have to say it. Everyone just hears it in their head now. You're going to kill me. You're going to come over to Dallas. You're going to stab me in the face, and then that's it.
No, I wouldn't do that.
I'm going to get a UPS box, and there's going to be like poop in there or something. Okay, so that's that. I've got one more thing to show, and it's just a nice little showcase of Ripper. which is primarily used for the dependency management in Ruby. And I'll post that link here. Ripper is freaking cool. And I think just generally growing as a Ruby dev, this is applicable across the board. Knowing Ripper and having the Ripper gem in your back pocket is something that I feel like Ruby devs need to have. And so I took my RubyMotion monies allocation and contracted out to Tinko. He's a pretty hardcore like LLVM or pretty hardcore like low level C compiler / etc. kind of guy. And I gave him the problem domain of the dependency issues that we had because of High Sierra. And I said, okay, I've got this other module, and I've got view.rb. I want the dependency order by looking at this is quote unquote obvious. Can you leverage Ripper to print out the files in that specific order? And what I wanted to do was do a sanity check with regards to dependency.rb and the code that he was able to derive by just having these quote unquote marching orders. And this is the output right here. So the next steps for me is to do my due diligence on dependency.rb compared to what he was able to create, and see if there's any little nuggets of wisdom in there that makes dependency.rb that much more battle hardened. Right.
You know, you're not sharing your screen right now, right?
Son of a. But everyone had the repo open. Totally.
Well, I totally was looking at the repo, but then
yeah. Yeah. So there you go. Right. So this is his rendition of dependency RB without any influence with the existing code base. And so the due diligence comes down to, okay, comparing this to what's in dependency RB and figuring out where the chinks in the armor are, or the holes, the gaps, right?
Can you give a brief description of what Ripper is?
What Ripper does is it parses Ruby code. So you can ask Ripper, hey, Ripper, look at this Ruby file, or look at this Ruby string, or this string, and give me all classes, all modules, all function names, the parameters they take in, and potentially even go down to method bodies. And it returns a structural tree hierarchy that presents that information. So it's almost like a tokenizer for Ruby. And with that information, you can then derive a dependency hierarchy, saying, okay, this module depends on this thing, this module depends on this thing. And from there, because RubyMotion is statically compiled, we can use that to determine the compile order and ensure that circular dependencies are indeed circular dependencies and not just, some concoction of modules mixed in with classes, mixed in with includes, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's what Ripper does. So now that you can see my screen, there's this concept called SEXP that stands for S expression, and what that is it's a Lisp concept. So Matsumoto is inspired by Lisp, or defers to Lisp quite a bit, or lends to it for his own inspiration. So it's not surprising that the concept of an S expression is inside of Ripper. But this is a core Ruby library. It ships with Ruby. It's shipped with Ruby 1.8, like as old as I can see. But the specific API, so you require Ripper right there, and then the specific
Can you bump
API.
up the font size of your
Yes, sir.
browser a little bit.
Okay.
Very good.
So you require Ripper, and then you can use its APIs to figure out what's specifically inside a file. So here's your scan. Here's your scan function. Let's see. So match inheriting classes. Let's find that. And match expression. So there's a bit of recursion because I mean it's a tree hierarchy that you're potentially working through. And we should eventually see right there. Right. So this little piece of API will give you a parse tree of a Ruby file, which is really cool. And then you can use that structure to figure out things about your file. So with regards to like how it applies to wider Ruby use, you can say, how many times do we, what does my referential hierarchy look like? How many times am I including this module, right? How many times am I invoking this in a method and then right after it invoking a second method? Like how many, maybe you could create a helper method that puts those two methods together, right? So it gives you a lot of interesting information with regards to analytics about a given code base. Another really important thing with regards to Ripper and how I plan to use it moving forward is when you look at Motion Doctor, this would be something that that Motion Doctor could potentially do. So Andy, like you had that issue with calling the C libraries. Well, I can use Ripper to find all constants. So like give me all constants across all these files, find the ones that start with the C, the capital letter C. And for those, cross-reference them to my C lookup API and say, hey, you're missing parentheses on this line and this line and this line, right? So interesting things like that can come out of having this library at your disposal, right?
Cool.
So that is the nice little tidbit piece of become a better Ruby developer by going further down the stack stuff. Questions, comments, thoughts? Know it, learn it, know it, love it, or however that goes. Nothing? We don't care, Amir? You handle the dependency.rb stuff?
Well, I'm happy to have somebody else handle it, but if it's not being handled, then I guess I have to.
No, it's being handled. Like, there's no worries about that. It's just, it's more of a bringing more people to the table and saying that the dependency RB is super complicated, but things like checking for C references, C API references, missing parentheses in a code base, that's doable, right? And that's something that could potentially be done inside of Motion Doctor, right? And if this scratches a specific itch with regards to like compilers and tokenization and some of the real computer sciencey stuff, this is an itch. This is a itch that needs scratching.
Cool.
I was just pondering with Motion Doctor the aspect of I tend to use RubyMine, and you could configure Motion Doctor to be running against your stuff as you're going to give you that kind of live feedback on things, depending on how quickly it runs and so forth. But
yeah, so what I was thinking was that if you do rake, and if you get a compile error or a crash of any type, after that you'll see a notification that says, looks like you got a compile error or a crash. You may want to try running Motion Doctor in this directory. And then what Motion Doctor will do will say, okay, I am in a RubyMotion directory, so I'm going to run rake and the default rake tasks, take in standard in, parse that out, and then based on information and markers that I see in there, do some additional steps that could potentially leverage this. But that is the goal. So not necessarily live feedback, but at least Motion Doctor feedback. Common questions like, I got an error that says this SDK is not supported. Well, when you run rake, well, immediately you can say Motion Doctor, and then they do Motion Doctor and it says, okay, you're on the starter edition, you're running Ruby 5.10, which has parity with Xcode 9.4. this is what you're missing,
Yeah.
right? Hey, you're missing parentheses on CG rec make, Andy. I can look at who am I and actually print that out and say, so please don't DM Amir about this because he'll just go, hey, so it looks like.
So a cool feature that's similar to this, I think, that is if you run into some issue with Fastlane, if you've used Fastlane before,
I have.
You hit some error or something, then you get like a message like, oh, here's a GitHub issue that mentions this error.
Right.
Like maybe this has already been answered or.
Yeah. So another thing that I am working on is Motion Search, which is similar to that. So the idea there is that Motion Search could potentially go through the pulse, some specific GitHub issues, maybe even some curated set of like forum entries, like community forum posts that talk about, hey, it looks like you're using AF networking. Here's a blog post that talks about AF networking, right? Or here's a sample app that gives you a dirt simple implementation of AF networking that you can reference, right? So having those curated aspects is coming. Is coming.
Sounds good.
Okay, so that is that. And then the final thing I have is with regards to Mojave. So with regards to RubyMotion 5.10, all High Sierra, APFS, HSF, bridge support, dependency RB stuff should be just done. The final last piece of issues was generating bridge support files, which did a glob of headers .h files, and then the bridge support files and the .h files suffered from the same sorting issue. So on APFS, so that was fixed thanks to Isaac Kierce. He's actually compiling SpatialLite from source, which is SQLite with Geo, with geocoding and lat long data types and stuff. So really cool stuff. And he was having that issue with bridge support on High Sierra. So after a long, arduous process of figuring out what was going on there, it turned out to be sorting of header files on APFS, and that should be it. So that's the good news. The bad news is Mojave's out now, so I get to try all that and see what issues come up on Mojave. I've got the beta installed. OpenSSL had a compilation issue that's been resolved, which is great, which allowed RBM to work, which allowed Ruby to work. All those things just fell into place once the OpenSSL issue was resolved. So really happy about that. The bridge support files for iOS 12.0 and Xcode 10.0 and all that stuff have already been generated. Now it's just about going through and seeing what's in play with regards to Marzipan. So Marzipan, do you all know what Marzipan is or have heard about it? So Marzipan is the merging, not really merging of Mac OS and UIKit, Mac OS AppKit, and then iOS UIKit. And Mojave has got some sample apps, the News app being one of them, the Stocks app, two apps which I've never opened. But both of those are written with Marzipan on Mojave. So it'll be interesting to see. So Marzipan at surface value looks like, oh, it's just a polyfill between UIKit APIs and app and like Cocoa APIs. It is not. It is something. It is a beast in its own. From what I've seen on some of the like reverse engineering on online. It's almost like an emulation layer for ARM64, which is insane. So they are emulating ARM64 on x86 and bridging that to x86 APIs. And they're doing it. And it's like, how are you doing this? And from what I understand, they've been working on Marzipan for years now. Like it's been a while in the works. And it looks like it's going to come to fruition 2019. Right. So plenty of runway. Of course, I'll blink and it won't be that way. So getting a head start on that and then having that information show up is important. And please use Motion Pulse to get up to the minute updates on Marzipan shenanigans and Mojave shenanigans. So far, I personally can't give the green light of saying make your main dev box Mojave. Lori was like, "What? What are you talking about? I'm not touching that." Of course, I have a sacrificial MacBook that I use for these kind of updates. So once Mojave gets to a point where I can like actually develop for all the things that I need to develop on, at that point I could probably say, hey, you know what? You might want to try it and you might actually like it, and you can still build and deploy your apps using Mojave with Xcode 9.4, and you can try Xcode 10 on top of that, and Marzipan and all those other things. So it's hard to say right now. It's too soon to say when that time will come, but the process is in the works.
I have a sacrificial minion that will be doing that.
Executive technical assistant.
That's right. As soon as you have something in terms of RubyMotion that can work with the
So 5.11. So 5.11 will have 5.11, barring any regressions that I've accidentally introduced, which I'm pretty sure I haven't. Take my word for it, even though 5.9 was just yesterday. Barring any of those, 5.11 will have the stack trace issues fixed. It'll have the crash log issues fixed, and it will have some of the what's it called? Memory. Some of the weird like memory weak ref issues with regards to leaking. A lot of those will be fixed. The memory leaks are obviously super hard to tackle, but that will be fixed. And the other thing that will be fixed is the LLVM 5.0 parity. So right now, RubyMotion's on LLVM 3.9 parity. Xcode 9.3, Apple released CLang with 5.0 parity. We want to make sure to be in lockstep with them, and that's what's holding back some of these like crash log issues, because all of it's kind of in the same brushstroke. So it just makes more sense to upgrade to LLVM, then do the crash log fixes, as opposed to doing the crash log fixes, deploying, going to LLVM, finding that those crash log fixes have resurfaced, and then doing the fixes again. So that's what's taking time there. And I can go into more detail if you really, really care. But the long and the short of it is that it's on 3.9. API changes they were breaking API changes from 3.9 to 5.0, obviously, because of the Semver update. And those compiler errors need to be fixed against 5.0 before moving forward.
What exactly were the crash log errors?
I think the issue there was that crash logs are not being generated on device. So if you have a crash on the device, you don't see the stack trace or the back trace in the REPL or on the device as of this point. And
it's not
now,
always true, but I think it does happen sometimes that you expect a crash and it doesn't show up.
Yeah. So a lot of the long and the short of it is it uses some low-level C APIs, and some of the data structures for those C APIs are like string 100, let's say. So if you have a string array that's only 100 tall, right, or can only hold 100 values, you're not going to get the entire crash log. And if it's only X number of characters wide, the char pointer will be gone on the far right side, is what you're seeing on the gem stuff. And it's a combination of the dynamic linking, CLang, and Xcode combined together that's causing that. So as soon as the upgrade happens, we're hoping that those data types realign, and everything will be good going forward. So that's what's holding up that fix. It is being worked on though.
I have a bug with crash logs on one of my machines where I don't actually get the crash log. I have to go into the crash log to see the stack dump.
Okay.
And the other thing that I've noticed is, whereas on my other machine, you know, if you do something, it's like, oh, you're trying to do this and that's wrong or something like that. You get an error message where something doesn't exist or like that. On this machine, it just, you know, the simulator dies. Okay. And I'm not quite sure what the circumstances are around it or whatnot, but you know, I hope that something will reinstall and I'll go back to normal.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm still like, I have a release of a Noble Circle coming out in 6 weeks, right? Staging for Apple feature and stuff. So I feel your pain because I'm literally working on this stuff myself. So I understand how painful it is, and it's being worked on, and it's, I'm feeling your pain too. So
well, it doesn't make anything impossible or anything like that, or
yeah, which is why I kind of like,
for me, it's just kind of a, okay, I've got something weird happening here, but I mean, obviously it seems to be unusual. Something happened. It likely will go back, but it's not worth taking up your time with unless, you know, if I could provide some sort of information around the circumstances. It's like, no, it works on one machine, but not on the other. And other than that,
story of our freaking lives.
Yeah. It's not worth bothering you with. That's why I was interested about the crash log. Yeah. It sounds like it's different for me. And likely it's, heaven knows, either something got moved the wrong place or something, you know, would be fixed with a reinstall, but I hate having to do a reinstall and then find out that you're missing a bunch of stuff and things like that. So it's, yeah.
Tell me about it. Motion Doctor will hopefully help with that. You're like, not holding my breath. I'll believe it when I see it. Gosh, I can hear you in my thoughts. All of you. So that's in the works. I think that's really all the things that were on my plate with regards to current RubyMotion inner workings and stuff. I guess one other nice thing is that the 5.9 regression, if you were using the RubyMotion templates and you upgraded to using the external repo, you got the fixes to those as soon as they were found, as opposed to having to wait the 3 days for the full rebuild and all that stuff. So it's bearing fruit. What little is there, but RubyMotion dash templates solved the specific pain point that I had. So I'm going to start putting more deprecated notices on the default template saying that this is deprecated. You need to reference RubyMotion dash templates. They're still backwards compatible as of this point, but eventually that will not be the case, right? So I'm going to slowly push for more usage of the external repo as time goes on. Right now, the only deprecation warning is on iOS. The next deprecation warning will come on OS 10, and then the third one will be on Android. So watchOS extensions, those things are still identical on both repos, but we're going to start seeing things move away as for at least those 3 templates. Soonish, right? It hasn't happened yet, but and it's been a year so far, right? At least 6 months since I put in that deprecation notice, but it will it will happen. Thoughts, concerns, worries?
We just got to get
Guess
the
I thought
samples.
the old templates weren't around anymore.
They are. They're still there.
That people could still use them, but
they're still there. You can still use them at your own risk, right?
I think my stuff is converted, but I'm not sure. I'll have to check.
If you don't get the deprecation notice, it's converted.
Okay. Maybe some of my older projects that I haven't touched in a while, I have to go back in and clean up the rake file or something like that. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I wish there was a simple migration, but with the asset catalogs and like all the differences within the rake file, it's just too hard to say, let me fix your rake file for you, right? It's just,
yeah.
Yep. Andy, there was a pull request out there with regards to.
I haven't completed it yet. I'm hoping to get to it this week.
No worries. I just figured you could talk about it if you want to.
Yeah, sure. I have. I was experimenting with some stuff, and there was a discussion on GitHub, I think, about it, about the how to generate the assets file and so forth. And I was playing with it, and I've got a mechanism for doing it that's actually based on I can't remember the name of the utility. Anyways, SIP. Is it SIP? Yeah, SIP. Yeah.
Yep.
So there's an Apple provided utility that does image resizing. Now I don't know if it's as good as the Image Magic one, which is but it's Apple.
Yeah, you don't need it. I mean, we don't need all the crazy things in there. Anyway,
yeah. So what it means is that without having to do additional installs via Homebrew or anything like this, we can put all the image resizing stuff right into the rake file, and then it'll generate all the icon assets and everything for you. The other thing is what I'd like to do is I'd like to have a hook in the build so that you could add a simple dependency, which is what I've been doing, and then running it as a separate rake task. Like I use icons. And so, I put a file in the resources directory, and then it just generates everything based on that. It has to create for the iOS one, because I have a version that works on Mac OS, and which generates the ICNS file. And then I've got this one with the asset catalog for iOS. The iOS one creates a I don't know what to call it, a tag file just for doing the rake, is this newer than that, right? So it can determine whether or not to do the generation, just by touching a file and saying, okay, touch it to get the date done. So I'm looking to do a pull request where I add this all into the rake stuff with some instructions, and then I'll replace the instructions that are right now going into the README. So it should be a very simple process to generate an icon simply by having a 1024 by 1024 icon file,
right,
or larger. Just plunk that into your resources directory, and then, as part of your build, you'll get your main file icon built.
And something else to consider, specifically for some, I wouldn't call it an ancillary task, but it's the cool thing about this specific piece of machinery is that it can be used outside of RubyMotion, right? Outside of a RubyMotion solution. Yeah. Oh God, I said solution, kill me. That's a .NET term, by the way, for those that have never done .NET. Oh my God. Can we like scrub that part?
I think we're going to have to deprogram him.
Anyways, so the interesting thing there is that you might want to consider making that a motion command as opposed to part of the rake, because that's like another one of those like little dip your toes in where someone that does iOS and they're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to deal with doing all this manually, and there's nothing out there that does it for me. Well, you could do brew install RubyMotion CLI or RubyMotion command, and you get this readily available, and you can just run motion space icon and give it a file path, and it'll do it for you. Another thing that falls inside that same line, which I'm working on, is app preview videos. So the idea there is it will do, you record you record via iTunes on an iPhone 10, an iPhone Plus, and an iPad Pro Big Edition, and it will take those app preview videos with some command line arguments to strip it down to 28 seconds, and overlay transitions between the splits, fade in, fade out, add subtitles if you have a subtitle file, because most people watch app preview videos with the volume off, so it's good to have some subtitles on there. But it's the entire process of how do you create an app preview video that doesn't require you to install all this like $300 software or try to use iMovie or anything. It's just you record from iMovie, you record from QuickTime, and then run motion video, and then give it the time segments, and it will do all the parsing, cutting, fade in, fade out, and say this is something that you can upload to iTunes and it will not get rejected. It will have all the right codecs. The frame rates will be standardized. You can't have varying frame rates in a video file. All those like nuances that exist because of app preview. So that's something that I'm working on because I need it for my own stuff.
Sounds good.
Yep.
That'd be awesome.
It is not fun. And it requires FFmpeg, and it's just infuriating how hard they make app preview videos. And then when you upload it, you don't get an error. You just get like this arbitrary error message and says, "Here's the error message. Look at this doc." And then you click the doc, and it's like a 6-page PDF with stuff in there, and it's like they have a matrix table of all the codecs you need to have and everything. It's like, okay, that's great information, but how do I make one of these? And then iMovie used to support app preview videos, but it only does it for iPhone 6 and Plus. So you can't create a preview video for iPhone 10. And there hasn't been an update to iMovie to allow developers to create iPhone 10 app preview videos. So I tried using that, and then I was like, great. So it just doesn't work for iPhone 10. And that's where I went down this whole path of doing all this rendering myself. Yak shaves. Shaving yaks. Shaving yaks. So that's that. One final thing, Mojave, the system Ruby that comes with it is 2.3.6. So they moved our cheese again. So just, again, across the board, be prepared for cheese moving for your local Rubies. It's just, a stronger reason to use RBM or RVM or some variant of that. And eventually Motion Doctor will say, hey, you need to use RBM or RVM. No, really. So that's gonna start happening at some point too.
Yes.
Questions, comments, concerns? Nothing? Andrew,
what are you working on lately?
Doing some fun stuff.
NDA.
But it's so super secret, he still can't tell us.
I guess. Okay.
Well, I haven't asked, so I don't want to.
No. That's fine.
No. Yep. That's all I got.
I know. Sorry, go ahead, Lori.
I thought I was going to have Derek in here tonight, but he thought he looked at the time and thought it was 7 p.m. our time, and so he had something else he had to go and do at 8.
Those time zones.
Yeah, time zones are hard. Anyway, so he's got. I gave him many choices of what he could work on, because God knows there's all sorts of interesting examples to be made that can be turned into good workshops for my school. So that's what I've been tasking him to do. And he eventually decided that he wanted to work on ARKit.
So I have that in work also. One of my executive minions is working on an ARKit thing, and I'll share that with you. So if you want to reallocate him to something else, it might behoove you to do that.
Okay.
My personal recommendation, honestly, with regards to like an introduction thing, is really games. If you could have like a Hello World like sprite kit demo, one of the main draws for I mean, I would make the claim that a lot of the stories that I hear about how people get into programming is because they want to make a video game, and then they realize the horror that is video game development, and they stop chasing the dream and die a little bit inside and go to corporate America. But being able to reignite that and saying that, hey, Ruby, you have an iPhone and a Mac, let's make a game, right? And just vanilla sprite kit. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. Just like a what's it called? A render loop and a calc loop and some collision detection. And I have a lot of that sample code already available. It's just more of a matter to say, let's get your version of Flappy Tappy Bird on your phone so you can relive the nostalgia of that game, right? And I think it's just it's so unrelated to business app development, but it's that draw that it's like, and that pulls you in, and it would be fun for your executive minion assistant.
Executive minion.
Executive technical minion assistant. Yeah, executive technical minion. Thoughts on that?
There we go. ETM.
Except they take money.
They do.
Thoughts on that? Again, just not necessarily games, but just this concept of fun, right? Fun exploration, joy of Ruby kind of thing. At least for like some of the entry, like the free courses or kind of the fun courses kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm just.
I know.
I'm trying to keep him on stuff that I have some knowledge of. I'm not a games person at all.
I understand.
So my comfort level with having him do that is fairly low.
What I'm hearing is that we need to have a G+ session where I can show you how to build a game.
Sure.
No, I mean, I'll follow up with you on that.
Okay.
So it won't take much more than 30 minutes, and you'll be like, okay, this is totally doable.
Okay.
When I first started coming to the meetups, Andrew was working on a game that it was interesting to see because
to release it.
Well, he was exploring the things like collision detection and stuff like that. I come from that, business programming and stuff, and I don't really play games very much too. So, I look at it and I go, yeah, I wouldn't know where to start either, right?
Yeah.
but having an idea or seeing some of it was very interesting because it's there are different concepts that you need to be aware of when you're programming it, and I would agree that games is something that it's like the gateway drug for programming.
It doesn't feel like work, right? It doesn't. You come home and you have a choice between learning AF networking or watching tutorial on AF networking or watching a tutorial that lets you I don't know, smash some politician's face. You'll probably do the second, or the DVD logo. Do you watch Office? Have you all watched The Office? Oh man. So I got to tell you. All right. So do you know those like old? Have you ever seen those old like DVD bouncing screensaver things?
Yep.
Mhm.
Right. So there's this episode of Office where Michael Scott is having a meeting and he's talking to his workers, and they look really intent and listening to him. But what they're really doing is looking at the TV behind him, and they're waiting for that moment where the DVD hits the corner perfectly and then bounces back, and like and they just kind of watch it, and then it would get close and they would go, "Oh my gosh." And like just funny stuff like that. And it was just I'll post a YouTube video so you can be there and watch it. But I made when I was training up my minions for RubyMotion, I made that DVD bouncing thing, but on the iPhone, and changes color and everything. And it's like one of those like nostalgic things, like and it used the game engine, but it was just a simple PNG, right, with a rectangle. And you say if the right side of the rectangle is greater than the device width, then change the X direction or Y direction. And so it kind of touches on the game aspect of it, but it's completely approachable from that standpoint. And so that was just a fun little thing that I was able to do. But again, along the same lines of fun exploration stuff, as opposed to I'm doing this for business app development, line of business applications kind of thing.
Some of the Stanford videos had he did like a breakout sort of a thing. Mm-hmm. That he had in just to demonstrate all the I can't even remember the formal name for them now. The motion, the detectors and things that you put on it, so that you assign to it with
mm-hmm.
Yeah, which was interesting as well.
Yep.
I don't know if you have those, Lori, but you may do a quick review of some of the stuff that he was doing, just to give you an idea about what might be possible if you're looking for something.
Oh, I have so many ideas. Yeah, I if I had the money to pay people to do stuff, I'd have so much content.
Yes.
Yep. So I think the takeaway here is that let's try to coordinate our minion work, because I have minions too now, and we might be able to divide and conquer on that.
Okay.
Y'all should get minions. It's the best. It's the best. All right. Andrew, are your kids old enough to code yet?
No, not yet. My oldest son is still learning how to read, so got to learn how to do that first.
Can you have him start reading Ruby APIs at least, or? I'm kidding. Don't kill me. Don't kill me.
No, for the game stuff, I could probably get my nephew to do it for free.
See, that's the thing, right? Yeah, you get a 15 or 16-year-old, and you say, "Here, you know this? Here, we'll teach you this, and then we'll get you to do this," and they're all in, right?
Yeah, it is fun. It is lots of fun.
Yeah.
Of course, I very biased opinion from my perspective with the game work that I do, but it has brought back the joy to development for me. I was completely done with development in 2013. I was like, I'm going to find another career kind of thing. And RubyMotion and game dev and all that brought me back.
Yeah,
so
now
I do dependency to RB stuff.
No, that was totally me. I was done with development in was it about 2005, 2007? I was like, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to spend a week configuring a project, because that's what it was. Just to start a project, you had to spend a week building configuration files. And yeah. So, and then, yeah, I got into Ruby and Rails. And it's just like, this stuff is fun.
So try to capture that. That's it.
Yeah. So, so I should probably tell you guys, when I did the talk at We Are Developers.
Oh yeah, how'd that go?
That went really well. It's not a great conference to try and get Ruby people, because it's such a broad audience. It's just like there is no singular
Focus like that, right?
Focus. That said, I still had an almost full room, and I had people. I ran right through any imagined question time, but I had people pounce on me
afterwards.
Afterwards,
yep.
To talk. I also had Eileen, Eileen Codes on Twitter, Eileen Uchitel from GitHub. She's one of the Rails core developers. She attended my talk.
That is awesome.
And she was like, afterwards, she was like, I didn't know anything about Red Potion. I didn't know you could do all that with with Ruby. So, because the example I did, because the stream that I was in was the Internet of Things. So the example that I did was the Apple TV app. And yeah, that people were really interested in that whole thing. So that's
awesome.
That's awesome. And Eileen was like, yeah, I want to do RubyMotion development now. So as soon as I'm done with these updates on my course, I'm gonna send her a comp to go through the course and see if I can get her to tweet about it, because she's got a massive amount of people following her.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, I think that's really awesome. That's really awesome. And any support I can provide, I'm more than happy to provide on my end.
That's real interesting, because GitHub, I think, was one of the sponsors of the first Inspect. I need to look at the back of my shirt. I thought GitHub was on there, right?
Yeah, but GitHub's pretty big, so not everybody knows.
Yeah.
Yep.
And if she's deep into the stuff that they're doing, and the people that might have been looking at it and working with it were, because I thought that they built their iOS interface using it.
I think you're thinking of
no. Basecamp did. I know Basecamp did a hybrid, because I met the guy from Basecamp.
Yep.
He was presenting. And so they did the sort of a hybrid app with lots of web views and stuff like that. That was the tack that they took. But I thought I heard something about the GitHub guys as well. So, but anyways, so it's interesting. So I mean, they might have built something at one point and then went down a different path, and those people are gone because there was turnover and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, having people like that involved with it, pointing, well, here we can do these things out as well, and this is really cool, and I've been using this. Sometimes that's what just what the community needs, where you know, it's like, oh, look what you can do, right? I never knew you could do this.
Yep.
Or do you know if there's going to be a recording, a video of your talk?
That's what they said. I haven't seen any signs of it yet, but they told me it was recorded.
I will tweet that out via the RubyMotion social media account.
They have like huge. Okay, so they had what, 6 stages, 6 streams that were going on simultaneously, which was good because they're like 8,000 people at this conference, and each stage had a full-time person there doing introductions.
Wow.
And like, these weren't just like random people. Some of these, like, one guy gave a keynote. A guy from Microsoft gave a keynote on the Thursday, and on Friday he was the stage announcer on the main stage all day. So it was very interesting. They had a whole, big music lead-in announcement of your talk. So
cool. We have a celebrity, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, so not, but anyway, yeah, that's all I got tonight.
Cool.
I just got my email from Apple Care saying that my replacement watch is coming, because surprised they couldn't repair that thing.
Did you get the sapphire screen, or was that the regular?
That's just the regular. Yeah.
Regular glass. Yeah. I didn't. I haven't broken my watch yet. It's safely stowed away in a drawer with no battery left because I stopped wearing it. But I will.
Series 0. No, the original. It's the original.
No, yeah, I have the original also, and it's somewhere. I think it's behind my dresser now. Like I don't know where it is.
I have worn it every day since I got it, and I still get full day battery out of it. That's
awesome. That's good to know.
I was disappointed to hear that I will have to buy a new one because they're not updating the software. It won't go to OS 5. But
yep. So I will have to buy a new one just to have the device, for testing and stuff like that. So I will begrudgingly buy a new one, and then attempt to wear it again, and then.
I couldn't live without it for a week, so I bought a new one. But this will be my testing device. It's a Series 1.
Awesome.
I feel uncomfortable when I have to take it off my wrist to do the update for like the 45 minutes. I keep looking at my wrist, and it's like it's not there.
Yeah. And I like the idea that I had to live without it for like a week to send it away, because I don't live anywhere close to a place where
Canada.
I could take it to. Well, if I lived in Calgary, I could have done it. But
I'm kidding. They have Apple stores in Canada? No.
But so sending it away and then getting it back. I might get it on Friday if I'm lucky. Cool. But yeah, so having it gone for like a whole week, like I kept going, and so on Monday I went and got a new one.
Yeah, I think I'll probably have to end up getting one. Cool. I think that's it. I put whatever notes, at least what we talked about, inside of the Slack. Most important one being the YouTube video, and your landing page could be a picture of Michael Scott with the DVD background, and then you were like, I will show you how to build that for your iPhone. So, all right.
All right. Well, if you don't mind, I think now's a good time to wrap up.
We don't mind.
We don't mind.
Well, thanks for joining.
At all.
Thanks for presenting, Amir.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you for your criticisms and your feedback.
I'm not that critical, am I?
I think it's your delivery. It's just like, it's just, you know, I get the death stare and then silence.
You're not critical, Andrew. Your feedback is always very well thought out, right?
You're constructive. I didn't say you weren't constructive. I'm just saying.
Careful, Amir. You'll end up supporting Red Nation.
All right. Well, y'all have a good one.
Okay.
Keep in touch and stuff. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.